I wanted to go over this post by the Pragmatic Engineer. The post by the Pragmatic Engineer was done in collaboration with a company called DX. I actually really like DX, and if you guys haven't read the book Accelerate, I believe it's called Accelerate. Some of the people that wrote Accelerate also founded DX, and I really like that book. And no problem mentioning it because I don't get paid. I'm not going to post an affiliate link. If you guys want a link, I can post it on Discord for you all. And the whole point of me stating this is I like those people and the work that they've done. They've actually done research. Now, what I want to point out in this post is some things that I want to elaborate on and make sure people understand. Because when I read this post, I have knowledge of both the platform as well as the Pragmatic Engineer. And I wanted to explain some stuff in some more common English and make sure people understood what data they were seeing. Because I think it makes a difference. I think it makes a difference. You can tell me if you think it makes a difference or if you don't. I spend a lot of time trying to understand the impact of AI. I actually spend a lot of time even off stream. I spend a ton of time on stream, and I spend a lot of time off stream understanding the impact of AI. So let's dig into this just a little bit. All right. Now, to be fair, the other thing is, okay, AI coding tools were widespread across tech, with 85% of software engineers using them at work, according to the 2025 tooling survey. But things like tokens aren't exactly cheap, and companies are spending more on AI tools. So how do companies measure whether or not they are worth the money? This is a big thing for companies. These tools are going to get more expensive. They're right now in their honeymoon phase where the companies that make them are losing money. And things like Cursor are losing money on top of infrastructure that's losing money. So Anthropic and OpenAI are both losing money hand over fist. And then you build Cursor on top of that, and Cursor's losing money. Now you have an entire stack that's losing money. So my only point to that is maybe they reach a scale where they stop losing money, but I doubt it. If we've actually looked at things like Uber. So I've been looking at the past like 10 years of tech startups. And the fact is that most of the time they thought that they could price really low and expand and reach a certain scale that made it where they could offer it for that price. And in the end, it just hasn't been true. If you're talking about Netflix, if you're talking about Uber, if you're talking about Lyft, if you're talking about all of these, they have aggressively raised prices over and over and over again. And so I don't think that stating that these people can expand and make money, I think the answer is no, they can't. At the end of the day, they're going to raise their prices. We've already seen a shift to doing that slowly. We've seen a shift from, hey, you'll pay us $20 a month. They could have just raised that to $35 a month, but that wasn't going to do. So they actually had to change how they charge for the platform as a whole. Okay, you're going to pay this plus, you're going to pay for tokens. So now as the tokens get more expensive, so does your service. So this is a way to, it future proofs their offering, but it also, or their style, but it also means it leaves you up to an unknown cost at the end of the day. You could spend easily thousands of dollars querying these AIs, and it would cost you quite a bit. All right, so to find out, I turned to Laura, CTO at DX, which helps companies measure engineering efficiency. Longtime readers have remembered Laura from 3 years ago. I actually don't like making DX a company that measures engineering efficiencies. I think this is a terrible way of stating what this company does, because I think this company does something way more important than that. And I'm going to get into that. I think that this makes it sound much more like a Big Brother platform, which it absolutely is not. This helps teams in engineering companies identify roadblocks and become more efficient. Yes, that's what it does. This right here is a horrible statement. He should update his blog post. I know it's mincing words, but I think it's important. Anyways, Longtime readers may remember Laura from 3 years ago when she started thoughts on measuring developer productivity and gave suggestions how to get started with this tricky field in her measuring developer productivity. All right. So I said all of this preamble. I rambled a little in my preamble. It's a pre-ramble. If you've ever seen one of those, you have now. Market and mindshare is still important to all of them. Yeah, you're right. So I was saying all of that the price of AI is going to go up. And so it's an actual real thing. And I'm going to state this as a pretty bad example. I get it, but it's meant to be simple. If I could hire an engineer for $100,000 a year, or I could get an AI that could do the exact same job as an engineer for $150,000 a year, well, I would much rather have, the engineer is cheaper. I might as well go with that. And I'm saying like they're the exact same capabilities, right? So, and then if I need an engineer to drive an AI and the AI costs $150,000, well, then you're going to have to say that it's going to have to take that single engineer and it's going to have to make them do the job of 3.5 engineers to make the price. At that point, it's $250,000. That $250,000, it's going to have to be 2.5 engineers. If it's not actually breaking even. I might as well just hire 3 engineers. So this is kind of what the companies are going to have to look at when we're talking about AI. There's actually a lot that goes into cost here, and I'm not trying. The other thing that I want to be careful about is when I'm talking like this, I am not talking about whether I would want to hire a human because I think that's better or more moral or things like that. I am just talking about a baseline financial responsibility. That's all. There's a lot of other things that go into why I would hire a human or whatnot. At the baseline, this is what a company needs to look at. So in this article, they're going to cover how 18 tech companies measure AI impact, solid foundations matter for measuring AI impact, breakdown metrics by AI usage level, and a couple other things. I'm really going to focus on these top ones here. And this might be a reality, but then you have like teams that are writing prompts for this thing, and it's still expensive because again, there's a lot of stuff people are glossing over when they're on the hype train that I don't find answered well. And nobody will join me to actually say, I have asked Sam Altman to come on my show and talk to me about it. Because I would really like to understand how they're going to get over these things, but it's okay. It's okay. I don't need to know. Obviously, if I was on the hype train, I would understand. All right. So, and then they are going to measure how AI impact. I think this one's really interesting. Now, the reason I'm bringing this up is there are several things here that I think, one, don't do DX a service like this, which helps companies measure engineering efficiency. This is not what DX does. This is not the true superpower of DX here, which is an absolute shame. It is an absolute shame. The worst part is he obviously is biased because he's an investor in DX. I would be an investor if I was allowed to be an investor in DX. And he actually just made bank because they literally just sold to Atlassian this month as well. The Pragmatic Engineer got to be an investor of DX and is now super rich too. So anyways, let's get into the meat and potatoes of this. Open up LinkedIn, and it only takes about 30 seconds to stumble across a post about AI changing how companies develop software. There are headlines about companies, mostly US-based big tech, supposedly shipping huge amounts of AI-generated code. Google with 25, Microsoft with 30, with reports implying these code lands in production. Now, I want to stop here and make a correction to here. With any of these here that you're talking about, because I've investigated these, these are dramatic overstatements. I've literally talked about this one specifically, Satya stating as much as 30% of Microsoft code is written by AI. The exact quote here, if you actually go into it, we can, this one doesn't have the exact quote, but the exact quote is saying, in one repository with mostly Python and a ton of tests and something like that, 30% of the code is assisted with AI, which is way different because they're saying that 30% of the code was generated in assistance with AI, and that it's in very, very, very specific use cases that it was working really, really well. Whereas here, this again sells the story that 30% of Microsoft code is being shipped by AI, which is just not the truth of the matter, not the truth that I can find diving into any of these things. I have listened to many of these interviews because of these radical claims being said, and they're always taken out of context. Some founders say AI can replace junior engineers. Not true. On the other hand, studies like the recent Meta study about AI's impact on open source software tasks find that AI can mess with our time perception and actually slow us down. This was a really interesting study. If you haven't read it, I actually brought this to your all's attentions a little while ago. This was a really interesting study where they actually paid open source developers to do their normal job but use AI, and it slowed them down. Now I actually went into depth on that, and I can do that again because I didn't clip it. So if you guys are wanting to see that again, I can cover that again. Leave a comment. But the big moral of the story with that one is that it can actually just make you slower, even if you feel like you're going faster. It can just generate a lot more code and not actually make you go faster. When it comes to showing AI impact, the headlines are pretty one-dimensional. AI can write a lot of code which saves us time, or does not. Meanwhile, we're careening towards our biggest pile of tech debt the world has ever seen. One thing that I don't think people understand very well, and maybe this is I don't think this is a hot take, but I have been told it's a little bit of a hot take, but code is a liability. You want as little code as possible. Every line of code is a liability. It is a failure point. It is a thing to go wrong. More code is not better. If you can delete code and maintain the same functionality, you should absolutely do it. This is why I hate over abstraction of different things, because generally it gears towards more code, not less code. Every line of code you write is a liability for your company. That's just what it is. It's a liability to maintain. It's a liability to fix. It's a liability to keep an engineer that understands that system, that does those things, that understands those things, and does what. You shouldn't be proud of more code. You should be proud of less code to do the same thing. That's what we should do. So just because we can spew out a bunch of code doesn't mean that it's a good liability for your company to take. I'm often left wondering why our industry has become fixated on lines of code again. Why is it the metric in the headline? What about quality, innovation, time to market, and reliability? These are all really good ones. Another good one, if you're struggling to measure this stuff that I have found, is the features. Now, you'll be like, Merrick, some features are big, some are small. Yes, and guess what? I can tell you that a team will produce roughly the same number of features each year, because there's enough variation in those features that, like, yes, if you look at a week, if you look at a month, yes, you're absolutely right. The number, if you look at a year, they're going to be really, really roughly similar. And you can see trends year over year of that type of growth. Okay. So I'm not saying you have to use features as a thing that you can measure. It is just another way to look at how efficient your teams are being. How many initiatives are they finishing, and things like that. And if you work really well at trying to keep them small, they're sufficiently same-sized-ish, over time. We agree. And so, quality, there's a lot of different ways to measure quality. You can talk about failed change rate. There's a bunch of ones here. There's a bunch of ones that Dora has for these. We can go in. There's a lot of things that you can measure here, which DX does help you measure. We agreed a long time ago that lines of code is a bad measure of developer productivity, but it's easy to measure lines of code. And the clear alternative, easy to latch onto. It also makes for good headlines. Absolutely. Um, I think this is going to be a hot take. This is going to be another hot take. Lines of code is terrible for many reasons. Absolutely terrible. And not at the same time. My best engineers write more lines of code. Now, they're not my best engineers because they write more lines of code. And, you know, in myopic times, there'll be a month where they're just helping junior engineers and whatnot, and they write fewer lines of code. But in a week that they're focused on doing their stuff, they will write more lines of code than other people will. So I think it's like a grain of salt things. Lines of code in general is just terrible. It's not a great way to look at things. But people that are good write a lot of lines of code. But there's a lot to measure with that. They also write really clear code. They write well-maintained code. They write well-documented code. They write documentation. They do a lot of other things that aren't in that. So like that's where it's like, that's why it's terrible, but they also write more lines of code. Best code is 90% documentation and 10% actual code. But at McKinsey, yeah, we follow everything McKinsey says. Basically, I'm a puppet for McKinsey. Actually, this is a veggie. This is a really good base principle that I like. So I think every team should like make up base principles of how they're going to operate. Orgs should have base principles. Companies should have base principles of how engineering works together. And I think that, you know, I'm not going to wordsmith the exact wording here, but something along the lines of that. Best code, best code is 90% and 10% actual code. I think that a good base principle here is something around your product isn't just code, or take pride in owning your product. That means documentation. That means failure rate. That means quality of code. It means so much stuff that isn't the code that you wrote. It means, do you have a run book? Do you have a run book for when things go wrong? Do you have a run book for how to update this? So like, let's say you won the lottery. A colleague of mine doesn't like the bus factor. He likes to go with the lottery factor, which I kind of like. You're hoping the best for your colleagues, not that they got hit by a bus, but that they won the lottery and just quit working. Do you have so I'd like to it's not mine. I want to be clear. It's not mine, but I'd like to popularize it. I like it. Do you have, stuff documented so well that if you win the lottery, the company continues chugging on? One of my goals in my leadership role is that if I won the lottery, I need to start playing it. But if I won the lottery, that the company would, everything that I do and whatnot is documented so well. It has run books, it has whatnot, that the company still chugs along. That's like the key mark of doing your job well, is that. And so like, yeah, code, own your whole product. Your product is an experience. And if that experience is bad, that means you don't have good documentation. It means that you have bad failure rates. It means that you have bad support. It means all of those things. So own your product. It's a great base principle. If your colleague was run over by the lottery, what? Oh gosh. All right. Closing this measuring gap is my job. I've worked on dev tools for over a decade, since 2021, and I've been researching and advising companies on improving developer productivity. Since joining DX as CTO 2 years ago, I now do this on an even larger scale, working closely with hundreds of amazing companies in complex and important spaces of developer experience, engineering efficiency, and AI impact. Earlier this year, I co-authored the AI measurement framework, which was a recommended set of metrics to track AI adoption and impact across. The biggest thing is like they track the same stuff. It's not actually that big of a thing. It's like, hey, if this was telling you the quality of your code before AI, it will continue to tell the quality of your code after AI. If this was telling you speed of your developers before AI, it will continue to work. So the big thing was like, in my book, it was a big nothing burger, because it's like, well, if you could understand those things beforehand, great. Now, the thing is, if you can't, or if you didn't before AI, it has now gotten much muddier because you won't understand the impact of AI because you can only start to measure what you know now. So that's a little bit of a, well, if you didn't do this a year ago, you're kind of out of luck. Today, we'll look at how 18 tech companies measure AI impact in the real world. Real metrics, the real metrics companies like Google, GitHub, and Microsoft use to measure AI impact, how they use these metrics, how you can measure these AI impacts and AI impact metrics. Now, one of the things that I wanted to point out here is this chart, because my strong belief here is these don't matter. Again, if you have a good metric for the quality of code that you release, if you have a change failure percentage, that's a great one for how well your release is. How well do you know if your product is going to fail? That's a great one to check that part of your thing. Your number of failures in production, your mean time to remediate. These are really great ways of understanding your quality. The number of bugs reported in production. If you get 5 bugs per month and then it goes up to 10 bugs per month, well, now you understand that the quality of your code, the quality of thing that you're shipping is going down, or at least something is changing. It could be the quality of code. It could be that you got a billion more users. Obviously, there's other metrics that you need to check in line with those. Like any one metric is bad on its own. Any one metric could be due to something else, like the number of bugs reported. If you have the exact same number of users, the exact same number of active users, and you are getting more bug reports, most likely you're pushing less quality code. If you double the number of people that are using your platform and your bug reports go up, this might be an effect of more people leveraging your platform in different ways that it's not accustomed to. So it might not actually be less quality code. So anyways, the one thing that I want to say is you never want to rely on one metric. Every time I've ever looked at one of these, one metric could be explained by multiple different factors that affect that metric. Okay. Like you could say that like your change failure is going up. And so you could say that you're less confident about your code. And that might be true. But maybe you also got other teams deploying and leveraging the platform, and you just didn't know their impact originally. And it changed the whole impact, which is then also important to measure this by team. That's another thing, because different teams are going to have different baselines that you can work off of. You should never judge team A to B because they work on different products that have different requirements. And those different requirements can make certain things more tricky and more challenging. So again, these are just, I have done this for a little while. I'm not an expert, but these are things that aren't brought up here when they're talking about this. So I want to and I'm not calling Dropbox out, I'm just using them as an example. They called out Dropbox as daily active users, weekly active users for AI tools. AI tool SAST, PR throughput, comparison by AI usage, time saved per engineer per week, change fail percentage, AI spend total per developer. These are terrible. These don't mean a whole lot in isolation of everything else that a platform like DX can measure and should be measuring to understand that your change failure rate isn't increasing. One that I love, something that I love to measure, is when a line of code changes, I expect for the next month to not change that line of code. It can change in the next month for 2 reasons. One, we have product that is changing their mind and changing the product based off of what they're doing. And that's bad. And we can focus on that. Or the other reason is that we're pushing a lot of crappy code that needs to be refactored. So when a line of code gets pushed, it shouldn't be changed for a while. Arbitrarily, I say a month. You can look at it more or less time. It depends on the product. This is a great one to say, hey, are we doing a bunch of rework? It's a great one. It's absolutely great. Another one that you can do is like PR maturity. When a PR is posted, are there a lot of changes or just a few changes? Does a PR generally do less than 10% of the code? So when it first gets pushed, is less than 10% changed by the time it's accepted? If so, it was a pretty mature PR. If more than 10%, it was a pretty immature push. And so you can set some of these things up that will help you understand the effects of AI, because these in isolation give you crap. Because if you're doing more rework but pushing more code, is it saving you time? You don't know, and you can't know based off of what they are saying here. So I really hate this graphic because in isolation, none of these make any sense at all. And these companies have to be doing a ton of other stuff if it's going to make any sense at all. So giving you this right here doesn't help. We can take another one. Let's do it. GitHub. GitHub actually uses DX very well, and I cannot believe this is the only thing that they're doing, but we're just going off of this post, and I kind of dislike this post. I like the Pragmatic Engineer in general. I'm not hating on anything here. And I really like DX. I think DX is fantastic. I think that this post could have used some work. AI time savings. How do you measure this? They said this is something that they measure. How do they measure this? This is a crap thing. I've worked on very hard on how to measure AI time savings. How do you measure, this is like saying, anyways, this is a crap statement. PR throughput, easy to measure. GitHub Copilot CSAT, easy to measure. Change failure rate, easy to measure. Engaged users, easy to measure. Innovation rate, this is a little bit more challenging, but it's a cool one to measure. So feature expenses, all engineering expenses, etc. This is where I was saying you could measure how much time is being spent on features and stuff as a indicator, which I think is actually a pretty cool metric. But you kind of need to elaborate on that. Developer experience, code maintainability, focus time, overall satisfaction. Great. But these in isolation don't actually tell you anything about AI. If you notice, they have this one, AI time savings, which is a complete crap statement. It doesn't tell you how they measure anything about that. And all of these are just standard engineering measure things that you can measure and are good to measure. These are fantastic, but they have nothing to do with AI. They have nothing to do with AI. I want to be clear. I like both of these companies quite a bit. The Pragmatic Engineer usually has really great articles. And I think with enough, when I first read this, I was like, oh, yeah. But then I was thinking about it and I was like, I actually spend a lot of time on this, and this needs further investigation or further understanding. Let's talk about the Google one. Let's go. Percent of code by AI, drafted and submitted, and acceptance rate. This is crap. I have talked about this so many times. When you hit tab, that's considered acceptance rate. So when you accept a recommendation, whether you change it partially or entirely, they can't and don't track that. Just that you accepted it. It's pretty crap, actually. It's pretty crap. Because there's a lot of times where I use it and then I go back and correct it. And then I want to say like half of the time I regret accepting it because it had like sneaky wrong things in it that I didn't realize. And I had to it caused bugs and it caused me to lose time. And you cannot track that. You cannot track those sneaky wrong things because it's so hard. Like, you don't even know how long you spent debugging that issue. Weekly active users is actually something I track. I track how many engineers are actually actively using it. I think this is minorly useful. I also can track how heavily they're using the tool. Now this doesn't tell me how many lines that they're doing with AI, just how heavily they're using it. And the only reason I track this is because I spend a lot of money on those tools and I want to make sure that they're actively using it. If they're not actively using it a whole lot, I reach out to them and I'm like, hey, do you actually want to use the tool? If you're not, I can save money by not actually paying for it. But that's like all tools. I think one of the ones that we track the most are internal tools. Like, if people aren't using the internal tools that we're building, then we shouldn't be building and making them and maintaining them and spending money on them. Like, that's just the hard truth of the matter of, I don't care how much you like the tool. I shouldn't spend money maintaining that tool. I should put it somewhere else. So we track our internal tools even harder than we do anything else. Usage intensity, change throughput. These are fine. Change throughput is like how often you're making PRs, which is a fine metric. If you and you know, a better one is how fast you're getting a review. I know this one isn't talked about here, but the faster you can get a review, and I actually think an AI could help with this. the better, because the code's fresh on your mind. If you could instantly get a review from AI, I think Copilot AI does a pretty good job of this. I actually really like that. Copilot AI, a lot of times I disagree with them, but it makes me think through the code immediately after I wrote it and posted it. So it's like a really great rubber duck experience in my opinion, and it's fresh on my mind. You don't want PRs to languish out there. You want them to be dealt with quickly. I think that this is a great one. Change cycle time. Again, nothing to do with AI. User sentiment and trust of AI. This is a user feelings. I think that this is great. And this is actually what was undersold in this whole article about DX, is its ability to get user sentiment and the engineers and what they're feeling on the matter. Because what Accelerate goes into, a lot of the times, if your developers are feeling that things aren't working well, they're actually leading the needle. So in something like this, let's say this is like how many PRs you're doing, and let's say it starts to go down. Let's say you're right here in time. Right here, your developers will start feeling like something's not working right. And so your developers' feelings are going to go like this. Or something like this. Not like this. Where they actually are more in tune with the system and process, where like when things stop working right, they're actually going to understand it intuitively themselves. So like surveying your engineers and getting honest feedback is super powerful, and it can alert you to problems before they actually become problems, which is so powerful. And it's something like I feel like is stupid. Leaders should know this. Leaders should know this. You should know your people. And you should know how they're feeling. And you shouldn't just be like, oh, yeah, I know that they're upset about the documentation, blah, 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 blah. No, go ask them. And ask them how they would fix it. Every leader should do this. All right. We don't need to go over more. There are a lot of the same stuff. Again, in isolation, they just don't mean a whole lot. I'm sorry, I ranted a little too far on this. Solid foundations matter for measuring AI impact. Using AI to write code doesn't change the metrics of what make good software good. What matters to the business? Software still needs high quality, easy to maintain, and delivered at speed. So this is my point exactly. You don't measure AI any differently than you do, because all you're looking for is, are my engineers hitting bottlenecks? Are they producing good, high quality code? This is all you really care about. Now, this doesn't mean that the tool pays for itself. I think the problem with this statement is it doesn't tell us if it's worth buying or not, which is a very serious topic to cover, and I don't think it's one covered by this. That's why you'll notice that many of these metrics shared above look the same as the pre-AI world, such as change failure rate, PR throughput, PR cycle time, and developer experience. Exactly. But it doesn't tell you if the tool was worth it. You don't need totally new metrics to measure AI impact. Instead, focus on what's always mattered. Is AI helping your organization get better at those things? Now, the end story here is, if you're using AI right now, if you're using AI, that's this line right here, and you start measuring, let's say this is a timeline, and you start measuring your stuff here, it doesn't matter. You've already started using AI. So the only way to know is to have a baseline and see if that baseline goes up or down after the adoption of AI. So this is like the only way, leveraging these things here, to know if there was an impact. But if you have already been using AI and you haven't been measuring what matters, then it doesn't matter. If you haven't measured what matters, it doesn't matter. You can't know into the past. Now you can go and try to look back historically, but if you haven't been having good quality ticketing and planning and stuff like that, it can be very, very difficult. So anyways, yeah. Not to say, I'm still working on understanding impact now, but it's more like calculus. It's much harder math if you didn't measure beforehand. A hard truth is that organizations can't yet articulate what matters when it comes to engineering org performance and developer productivity. We are finding it almost impossible to measure AI impact beyond surface level metrics like lines of code or acceptance rate. 100%, and these are terrible for multiple reasons we've already covered. While we shouldn't start from scratch, we do need new targeted metrics to see exactly what is happening with AI usage. Knowing where people use it and to what extent influences things like decisions about budgets, tool rollouts, and enablement, all the way to SRE and security, governance, and compliance. 100%. These are huge questions that haven't been really fully fleshed out or answered. AI metrics can show how many and what types of developers are adopting tools, how much work and what kind is being touched by AI, how much it costs. And these don't overlap with these types of things. If teams are shipping faster, quality and reliability are increased or decreased, if code maintainability is decreased or increased, if AI tools are reducing friction for the developer workflow. They don't answer any of these things. All right. So let's go to the next section, breakdown by metrics by AI. So this is something I wanted to point out because if you haven't used DX, this chart is not misleading, difficult to understand. And there's two different types of metrics. And this is why I didn't love this post, because I love DX actually. And I just didn't think it did the credit. So there's two different types of metrics on this list. Review turnaround right here is review turnaround is measured by literally statistics, system generated statistics from GitHub. How long was it until you got a review? What was your turnaround on your review? How long did you wait? Okay. This is just cold, hard data. Okay. Now, this one here, change failure percentage, you might think is cold, hard data. How often did we push stuff and did it fail? Oh, 1 second. We got to take a quick puppy break. Come here. You can get up. Come here. Come on. Get up. Good boy. There you go. Say hi. Don't say hi into the mic. Yeah. Oh, good boy. Let me get that itchy. Is that better? Oh, good boy. No. All right. Getting too heavy for that. Is this the start of a new version control system? Something that can track AI micro commits and then edits against the real commit? Russell, I actually don't know. So one of the things, and I'll look if I can't share this with you all. I don't have the data at my fingers, but there's like data you can get from Cursor. But like Cursor just tells you how many recommendations were accepted and how many lines it generated. It doesn't tell you about like, hey, did people like then go edit it or anything like that. I almost feel like this needs to be part of the editor, right? I'm not sure. Like the agent itself almost needs to track. What did it recommend? Did you accept it? And then did you edit it? I think it almost needs to be part of the agent itself. And I don't know. I mean, I know why the agents wouldn't do this. Like, this is going to be a cynical take, very cynical, but they don't want to know, right? To them, they're riding the hype train, right? And if you worry that people are editing every single line you generate, then you wouldn't want this stat, right? You are there to, like, these people are there to generate the things that make them look good. And that's all they're doing right now. Maybe that's a bit cynical, but it would actually be easy for them to know and to test those things, right? How would the version control, like, I'll fork Git. I'll do it. How would the version control know? Like, so like right now, when you commit in Git, how does it know who wrote what? So effectively, you're saying in a commit, there's 2 edits, but how would it know without the agent telling it, right? Okay, yeah. So the cursor is developing some kind of trigger, right? The agent would have to tell it, right? But then the agent has that data anyways. Can we write a plugin? Can we write a, wait a second, can we write a VS Code plugin to capture this data from outside the agent? Like maybe it could support agents in general. Like actually didn't VS Code's agent, didn't the agent get open source? Could we just add it to the agent? So what we really need is a standard. We need to have a standard and implement it in, implement that standard in, I forget cursor, not cursor. I forget VS Code's Copilot. Oh, I can't believe I forgot that. Implement it in the open source Copilot agent. Make it a standard so that basically any agent can implement the interface. And like, it'd be interesting if you looked at a Git pull request and it had like AI agent code highlighted and human code highlighted. That would be interesting. Obviously, I can't edit GitHub, and it feels not important to core Git either. Ew. Let's work on the, I'm going to think about the, like how we could make a standard for the agents. I like that idea. I like that idea a lot. Okay. So sorry, back to the news. One, we just discussed. We are going to make a standard for collection of AI metrics. And then we're going to try to get it into GitHub Copilot since it's open source. This actually sounds fun, exciting. The only thing that I hate about this is I'm pretty sure that it's in TypeScript or JavaScript, and you all know about how much I love TypeScript and JavaScript, but I'll do it for the company, for the community is what I meant. I meant community, but whatever. The community is my company. That's what you guys just didn't know. I'll do it for the community. Okay, so one of the things that wasn't actually said, and if you don't use DX, then you wouldn't understand this. So here, like I said, the review turnaround is very much what the system is reporting. This is what GitHub is reporting. This is what GitLab is reporting. DX will integrate with any of those. And it's actually what the system is reporting. Okay. And what people don't understand is change fail percentage could be system reported. And you can actually do that in DX if you'd like to have, like if you have a CI/CD pipeline and you have triggers for when it fails, it rolls back and stuff like that, it can actually report that information. So it could actually be system data. But this is not that. This is not that. See this squiggle right here? That means it's based off of survey data, which is data submitted by the feelings of your engineers, which I am not suppressing or saying that it's not important. I actually made the statement here that it was very important because you could actually detect stuff sooner because engineers are very in tune with what they're doing. So it is very important, but it's also very important to understand that that's what it is. This squiggly, survey data. So this is people's feelings. They feel like they have higher throughput. Now, we've talked about how AI makes you feel and that feeling isn't always correct. So they feel like they're slightly faster with 11% higher throughput. Again, feeling. They feel like they have 23% higher change failure rate, which I want to say this is actually pretty accurate to the data I have measured as well. So while I say this is based off of feelings, I also think it's pretty accurate too. Another thing, the focus group has bigger PRs. They have bigger PRs. They're putting more code in there, not necessarily more features. They're getting worse. So the people using AI are getting worse reviews. They're getting faster review turnarounds with worse comments, worse reviews. They say that they're doing about 4.3% higher Um, allocations towards feature development. This is not a feeling. This is based off of their system collection. Again, this is based off of feelings, squiggly line. Actually, I don't know what this one's based off of. This is a garbage one. This is garbage. Yeah, you'd have no idea. And the reason I say that is it doesn't have the SQL thing. So when it's based off of system data, you have this SQL button and you can click that. I'm going to have to get DX on here to show you guys their dashboard because like this might not make sense, but if it has the SQL, it's system data because you can actually see the query that makes this chart over your data. When you see this, it's based off of user data when you made a survey. This one doesn't have either, so I don't know what it's based off of. Fact of the matter, it doesn't have the squiggly, but it doesn't have the SQL. What is it based off of? Probably magic. That's what I go to. So this is actually really important. Like if you just look at this data, it's very hard to understand that. And they didn't explain that. It was actually hard when I first used the DX platform to understand which ones were which. You got to look for these things. And kind of there's some meaning if you can see the SQL button or not. And then the other thing that you have to look at is you always have to remember that you have to look at multiple things at the same time. So PR size is actually something measured from the system. These people's PRs got larger when they adopted AI. They feel like they're doing about 11% more PRs. That's a feeling. There's actually a way to tell how many PRs they are. I'm not sure why they put the feeling in here instead of the actual PR throughput. This also annoys me that graph isn't here. Because you can actually measure those things too. You can also take the survey about them. And this one's survey data. So again, this goes to start with solid baseline measurements if you want to do comparisons well. That's what I'm saying. If this is you and this is your AI adoption and you're here, it's almost impossible to leverage the methods that they're saying here now. You've already jumped the shark. The shark's been jumped. I don't even know where that comes from, but it's been jumped, and there's no putting the cookies back in the box. I believe that's the saying too. It's really important to measure what matters, and understand what matters. Understand how you in a company decide what quality code is and measure that. And it's really important and it's really difficult. We don't need to talk about any more of this stuff. Like this wasn't part of my big thing. Stay vigilant about maintainability, quality, and dev experience. 100%. Like 100%. You need maintainable quality code and you need your devs to have a good experience because happy devs stay with the company. Happy devs work fast. Did you know that happy devs work faster? Did you know that? I mean, it sounds so stupid to say it because you'd think that happy employees work faster and harder. You know, when I have teams that are happy, if I'm like, hey, this thing came up and we need to just knock it out and it means that everybody stays late an hour, they're happy to do it because I take care of them when I can. So the thing is, like, this right here, all this is saying is that there's no silver bullet. You got to measure what matters, and that's all you can do. You can't actually tell how much an AI is helping you right now, unless if you could measure the exact same team. And the other problem with measuring the exact same team from last year to this year, because that's what you'd have to do, and something I have done, is that you also have different people on it now. The team changes, it's grown. There's new people on it that weren't here last year. So the number of features don't really count because it's a larger team. The PR throughput doesn't really count because it's a different team because we have more junior engineers on the team now. So like that actually changes stuff. The code quality does also change because we have more junior engineers. And like there's so much that changes with that makes it an impossible thing to judge a team from last year to this year. Just it's not good. And I don't like. Now, the one thing that DX does do is it does these developer experience surveys. And this is the bread and butter of what makes DX amazing. When I told you that a lot of the times engineers know things are going wrong, this is the engineer line, going wrong before you actually start seeing them affect you, they do. And there's so much that you can get from this. The other thing that you get from this, if your company doesn't realize this, is when you ask engineers what's going well, what's going wrong, you get their feedback and you make it better. You earn their trust, you earn their respect, you earn happy employees because they see that you care about how they work. So this survey that DX will allow you to do, there's some other platforms if you want a list. I won't be biased. I do like DX a lot. Their surveys are the best, I think, in my personal opinion. They have not paid me. They have not asked me to say anything. I have tested many of these platforms from DX to Linear B to Jellyfish. Jellyfish actually has some pretty cool things about them as well that I actually really like. Jellyfish and DX are by far my Linear B. I would stay away from with a burning passion. I would not touch Linear B if I was a paid sponsor. Like they could not pay me enough money to say anything good about them. That's my experience. So anyways, I really like this. It does so much for your engineering to actually, you pay money. You literally pay money to get surveys that tell your employees that you care and that you're going to fix this stuff. The other things that you have to do is when you run one of these surveys, you have to actually act on it. If you run the survey and change nothing, they lose trust. So what builds trust is you run the surveys and you do something, you act on it, you actually make changes. So if they say that their deep work is affected and is bad, make changes, even if it's difficult. Figure out what those changes are and make them. If they're saying their review turnaround is bad, make changes. It is a leading indicator. There you go. All right, I'm done with my DX rant. Good article for the most part. Go read it. Understand it. Long, short of the story, there is no good way to measure the impact of AI right now. Not until we actually make our IEEE standard that we're going to. We're not making an IEEE standard. We're just going to make an open source standard. I'm going to talk on Discord about it. I actually really like this idea. We'll talk on Discord about it because I would like for all companies to hit the same standard. That way you could have one collection thing. It would be cool to log it in Git. I absolutely think that would be awesome. And I think that we should, in the standard, put a way where it could latch into source control systems, but we could actually just have it latch onto a company's service so that they understand, okay, well, it was accepted, but then half of it was changed. Okay, cool. Okay. On this, I spent way too much time. I'm so sorry. I spent way too much time on the DX part, but there's articles like this that Dora reports find AI as an amplifier in software development. And that's actually what it did find. So if you look through the Dora report for AI, is what Dora found out is that AI just amplified whatever you were doing. If what you were doing was painful, AI amplified the pain. So if you didn't have people checking in good code and you had a problem with good code quality, AI just amplified your pain with code quality. So if you didn't have an engineering team that took code quality seriously, you got worse code and you got more of it and you were flooded with it. So what the Dora report basically came out with was that AI was just an amplifier of whatever was already there. And most of the time that I looked at most of the analysts of it was that AI actually amplified problems more than the good things. It stresses that for AI to be successful, it is fundamentally a problem with the systems that has to be addressed first. Healthy teams climb higher, shaky ones fall faster. Tools don't change that. They just shine a light on it. Basically, it comes down to all the teams that you're building. This is another reason, like, I'm so on a rant today, but like, this is another reason, like, Meta cutting out middle managers. Middle managers are the flipping backbone of your company. Like, they are the thing that glues everything together. And if you haven't empowered middle manager, like, sometimes you can get in a problem where middle managers are like building little kingdoms, and that's bad. But if you're talking about your VPs and your directors not gluing and holding everything together, you have done something completely wrong. Because literally, in my experience, middle management is the stuff that actually gets things done. It is actually the ones that drive the changes in the company that the upper management wants to see. It's the thing that builds trust in your teams. It's the thing that does all of this stuff. It's the thing that builds strong, healthy teams. Strong, healthy teams that then can leverage tools and be accelerated.